Well, hello, and welcome again to the 2012fad.com. I will be your host for this evening, and my name is Charlie Bluehawk. We've been discussing the last couple of days the Declaration of Independence. Basically, we've been breaking it down into separate sections, deconstructing it, analyzing it, because it's written in a language that's more than 200 years old, back when people in this country were very, very highly educated, very, very intelligent. Up until 100 years ago, we all were fairly intelligent. I mean, you could find farmers out in Ottumwa, Iowa, with the equivalent of PhDs. They had a lot of dignity. They had a lot of, not self-confidence so much as self-respect. They conducted themselves like human beings, whereas today we barely seem to be able to function as more than monkeys in a tribe. And I'm really sorry to say things like that. I really am. But I can only go by what I see and what I've experienced, which is why I fled the United States in 2007. Why I then fled New Zealand in 2010, because New Zealand is a wonderful example of social engineering. I mean, I can't say whoever owns New Zealand. I have to say whatever owns New Zealand is not human. And as a experiment in social engineering, it's a tremendous success. But that's a chat for another day. So here, and I hope this will be part 6 of the Declaration of Independence. I'm hoping that we can get through the end of it tonight, and I can manage to do it without crying, because it's a heartbreaking document when you look and see the gift that our fathers and mothers gave us more than 200 years ago, and the dreams they had for us, the knowledge, the tremendous wisdom they had that they tried to pass down to us that we've simply ignored. But let's give it a try. Part 6, the unanimous Declaration of the 13 United States of America. He, George III, King of England at that time, he has excited domestic insurrections amongst us, and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers, the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. Well, these are my people, so I can speak a little about them. I did not grow up amongst Native Americans. I grew up amongst white trash, so I have no personal experience in my own culture. But it was tradition amongst the Indian people of that time. They understood the concept of total war. You didn't leave children behind to grow up to be your enemies. More often than not, children were taken into the tribes, and if they were young enough, they were taken into the tribes of those who conquered them and raised amongst the tribal people. But yes, as a rule, everybody was killed. And what we have here is King George III at that time, 200 years ago, was sending agents in to cause uprising amongst the native population and turning them against the white settlers. It's divide and conquer in the simplest possible terms. And again, we have that today in a much more, at least in my point of view, much more horrifying aspect. Our masters today have refined this down to turning men against women, or more specifically, women against men, blacks against whites, blacks against Jews, Jews against Hispanics. It's divide and conquer. It's the simplest form and the most profitable and cost-effective form of warfare. You simply turn people against one another. Again, another reason I fled the United States is I just couldn't stand being abused by women who were raised in the United States to believe that men were the enemy and were the cause of all of their problems, whether real or imagined. And I just couldn't take the abuse anymore. But it's a very effective means of warfare. And if you're really stupid, you fall for it. And unfortunately, You and I were really stupid. We fell for it. The unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America continues. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince, whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant, is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Basically, this means that the people of the United States said, "Excuse me, please don't hurt me. What you're doing is wrong. I thought I'd point it out to you. Hopefully it was just a misunderstanding." And they were kicked in the face, stabbed in the back. They were abused even more. Again, our masters do this to us today. They are still taxing us unfairly, unjustly. The IRS is a privately owned offshore corporation with no right at all, under any law, to steal money from us. The last time I heard, you had to work from January, February, March, April, May, June, July. And all the money you make in that period is stolen by the IRS, an offshore privately owned corporation based in Puerto Rico, which then transfers that money to the Federal Reserve Bank, which is also a privately owned offshore corporation, at the rate of, the last time I checked, $500 million an hour. That money is then transferred to Europe and is never seen again. The country survives on excise taxes. They tax you when you buy cigarettes. They tax you when you buy gasoline. And credit. No wonder we're trillions and trillions of dollars in debt. All of our money is simply stolen. So even now, 200 years later, we're being robbed. And anytime you speak up against being robbed, you go to jail. And that's the way it is. The Declaration of Independence continues. Nor have we been wanting in attention to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. Basically, this means that British rulers, our masters at that time, were trying to control the United States completely. Well, 200 years later, they've accomplished that. It's called British corporations. 98% of the United States today is owned by foreign corporations. Those foreign corporations are British. Those foreign corporations are in turn owned by the Crown of England, a privately owned corporation in the City of London. The primary shareholder is the Queen of England. So 200 years later, the British yet again control the United States, but this time it's economic. You can look all of this stuff on the web. You don't need me for this. You can look at the top 1,000 corporations in the United States and just, as the old saying goes, follow the money. You can prove this yourself. You don't need me for this. It's just the way things are. The Declaration of Independence continues. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our immigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity. And we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would, inevitably, interrupt our connections and correspondence. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation, and hold them as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace friends. And I can't say the word magnanimous, I can't say it. You'll have to look it up. The colonies, the leaders of the colonies, have asked their brothers and sisters in England to say, hey, help us out. Please help us defend our rights. Please stand up with us together for the common good of you and me, something I've been saying to you for 40 years now, and I basically got the same reaction as our mothers and fathers did 200 years ago, you didn't give a damn. And so I fled the United States, and so our mothers and fathers 200 years ago decided to go their separate ways. The Declaration of Independence continues. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress, assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by the authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of the right ought to be, free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states they have the power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. I don't think that needs to be explained. 200 years ago, we were a people. True, it only took 5% of the population of the 13 colonies to give us freedom for a time from Britain. Britain never forgot the injury we did to them. Britain and the Vatican. Because at the same time the colonies threw the British out, so to speak, they also were very aware of the power of Rome. They were very aware of the fact that the Holy Roman Catholic Church was simply a remnant, the leftover, the rebranding of the Holy Roman Empire, which was just a rebranded name of the slave masters from Egypt, who we apparently belong to. So when our mothers and fathers kicked the British out, they kicked out the Roman Catholic Church as well. Neither have forgotten that loss of income. The bully never forgets. And we are living in the day when they want their pound of flesh, and that's you and me. It's up to you. It's your decision. Me, after 40 years, I saw that you weren't going to stand up, so I left. When I got to New Zealand, and for 3 years, I saw the future of the United States, if it lasted that long, and fled again. But it's up to you. You have to decide. Nobody can make this decision for you. You can either die on your knees in horror, or you can stand on your own 2 feet as men and women, as human beings, and do something. But it's up to you. From an ancient Celtic culture, very advanced, very peaceful, very powerful people, there was a blessing, a greeting, a wish, a dream for a friend or a beloved stranger, and I share with you. May you live as long as you wish. May you love as long as you live. For the 2012fad.com, this is Charlie Bluehart. The 2012 Fad is brought to you by Coffee and Blood, Love Letters Between the Dead, a series of 5 erotica horror novels about a fallen angel finding his way back to regain his own soul. and how the CIA war against the human race, their black magic, captures and traps him in the body of a mind-controlled slave designed to hunt down and to kill their god, their Satan.